Thoracic cavity. We have our heart. Right, we're continuing on from last class. We're doing the circulatory system. So, from the left ventricle, which is pointing here, the left ventricle, when it pumps, it's going to pump into the aorta that we see here. This part of it is called the aortic arch, and it continues all the way down to the systemic aorta. So this whole thing, anywhere you put a pin, is called the systemic aorta. Now, off the aortic arch, we have three major separations. One of them is going to be the coronary arteries, which, as you can see clearly on the pig, is on the heart, which is going to feed the heart itself, so it gets the freshest blood. Next is going to be the brachiocephalic. Brachia means arm, cephalic means head. So if we go further up here, there'll be a branch. One of them is going to go into the right subclavian, which feeds the right limb. And then you're going to have the two carotid arteries, which feed the neck and head. Next separation on the aortic arch is going to be your left subclavian. Left subclavian goes under same as the right subclavian, goes under the clavicle bone and is going to feed the left limb. As you can see, that's going to go down this way. Now, what you notice here is that if this is the left side, that's going to be the right side. Again, if this is the ventricle, this is the right ventricle. So when the right ventricle contracts, it's going to push blood up the pulmonary trunk, or the pulmonary aorta, right? Which also means that this is our atrium and auricles, right? So the pulmonary aorta normally goes into the lungs. Because this is a fetal pig, the lungs have not inflated yet, so we have something called ductus arteriosus, which splits off and goes into is a bypass actually for the lungs, which go directly into the systemic aorta. Right. So as we follow it into the abdominal cavity, our first major that's the attachment. Now, directly under it, you'll see another branch, and that branch feeds the small intestines, the large intestines, and the pancreas. This is called the anterior mesenteric artery. All right, the next branch that we need to know is going to be the renal artery, and as you can see, that goes to the kidneys. Now, the next two are particularly small. I have a female here, so the ovary that I'm pulling on, as you can see, is very thin. This artery here is going to be the utero-ovarian artery. In the male, it's called the spermatics. And the next one is going to be the posterior mesenteric. As you can see, it's very closely behind it, and again, very small. And it feeds your large portion of the large intestines, but mostly your colon and going into the rectum. So it splits off in two directions. Now, so this is posterior mesenteric, in case I didn't say that. So the last two is going to be the internal iliacs, and this is going to be the external iliacs. Internal iliacs eventually goes into your umbilical cord, the umbilical artery, and this one's going to go into the legs. So it's going to be your external iliacs.